Yo guys, how are you all doing today? I wanted to do a bit of a throwback video and talk a little bit about the community test environment that we had in Battlefield 4, otherwise known as the CTE. So for those of you who don't know, the CTE was basically a test server for Battlefield 4. It was a completely separate client from the normal game, which meant that DICE could patch it independently and test out various gameplay changes before putting them into the live version of the game. If you wanted access, you needed to be a premium member due to limited availability, which was also quite a nice perk for actually owning premium in the first place. This was the first time we'd seen test servers for a Battlefield game, and the CTE servers were a game changer. They let the community test things before they were put in the game and give our feedback on them as they went through their different iterations. DICE were praised for opening up to us, and everybody was happy. DICE got free testing and feedback from the community, and if any of the changes were strongly disliked, the community would have a chance to voice their opinions to DICE before the changes were greenlit and moved into the retail version of the game instead of after. And this also meant that DICE wouldn't get crucified by their community for unwanted changes, as we've seen in Battlefield 5 recently. The CTE is effectively their playground, so it was win-win for everybody really. Now, Battlefield 4 was honestly in a bit of a poor state when it shipped, but over time, the game has become what it is today, and most players consider it to be one of the better Battlefield games in its current state. This is largely thanks to some of the changes that were pioneered over on the CTE, like improvements to the netcode, implemented changes to vehicles like an FOV slider for jets in third-person mode, and the third-person rear-view chase camera that was added. They also implemented what DICE called Cte Prototypes, named this way because they might not make it into the game at all. One of these prototypes was to improve attack helicopter flight physics to make them feel a bit more agile, and after these changes, the helis were actually able to do flips and were just way more agile, and that's the way they currently are in the game. It wasn't just small gameplay changes like this though. One of the developers working on the CTE was leaving the company, and on Halloween of 2015, which just so happened to be his last day, he implemented some really wacky game modes. So you had the skid loader, destruction derby up on the skyscraper in Siege of Shanghai, my personal favourite, and then there were snowmobiles only on Operation Whiteout, and jeeps only on Golmud Railway. Just an awesome way for the developers and the community to have a bit of fun together. But that wasn't the best part of the CTE. The best part is that we got to create an entire map with the developers pretty much from scratch. First, we all voted on a theme for the map out of a handful of selections. The choice ended up being for a jungle map that would later on become Operation Outbreak, which has become one of my favourite mid-sized maps in Battlefield 4. But the great thing here is every time DICE made some changes to the map, everything from moving around objectives to adding assets in like buildings or foliage, it will be put straight into the CTE so we could see where they were up to. Sometimes this meant you were running around playing in a map without any textures, but they really laid themselves bare here, and when we finally got the end result of the map, the community couldn't really complain because they had every opportunity along the way to stand up and say something if they were against it. Now, they did have the CTE initiative in Hardline and in Battlefield 1. I didn't play those games very much, so I can't tell you exactly what they did in there and if it was as revolutionary as what they did for Battlefield 4, but I don't think they created any more maps with the community. However, Battlefield 5 does not have a CTE, and in my opinion it sorely needed one, and indeed needs one still. Just imagine if we'd had the 5.2 TTK changes put into the CTE environment first, instead of them being forced on everybody in retail. The community would have hated them, complained on Reddit, and DICE could have just scrapped them there and then, since they would have only been a prototype, and the community would have been happy that DICE listened and tested them out first. But as you all know, that didn't really go down that way. So why is there no CTE available for Battlefield 5? I can only assume it's down to the lack of dedicated servers. We recently learned that Battlefield 5 can only support a limited number of playlists for different game modes, meaning if they want to add a playlist in, they also have to remove one. So a lot about Battlefield 5 seems to be rather flawed right down to its foundation. I know we won't see a CTE for Battlefield 5, but I sincerely hope DICE haven't forgotten how much of a success it was with previous Battlefield games, and that they bring it in looking forward to the next game. On a different note, I wanted to get some feedback from you guys on something. What is your favourite loadout for the attack jet in Battlefield 4? You guys know me, I usually run with ECM and the JDAMs, but I'm looking to play around with some wacky loadouts for an upcoming video, something a little bit different. So if any of you guys can think of any, please leave a comment down below with your suggestions. Don't forget to hit sub as well if you aren't already, so you don't miss out on that video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you did, pop a like down below, or indeed a dislike if you hate the CTE and Battlefield 4. I don't know. Have a good one, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time.